Won't it be Ryan the Great? And today we are talking some very interesting moves that have happened. Move, I guess you should say, that has happened in the NBA. Tom Thibodeau out as the New York Knicks head coach after 5 seasons, after the New York Knicks suffered a 6-game defeat to the Indiana Pacers just about a week ago, I guess you should say. And yeah, guys, I was actually pretty surprised by this move. I think the NBA community was kind of surprised by this move just based off the fact that the Knicks beat the Boston Celtics and they lost to a team that some would say are better than them in the Indiana Pacers. But the Knicks not getting to the NBA Finals, and yeah, they're gonna have a new voice in their locker room. So yeah, we'll be breaking down this move, why the Knicks fired him. Do I think the Knicks should have fired him? And what's going to be next for the New York Knicks? So let's just get right into the video. But before we get right into it, guys, make sure you guys subscribe with your post notifications on. Go subscribe to my brother in the Great Blogs. Make sure you guys go subscribe to my second channel at Ryan the Combat Great. Make sure you guys go follow me on X on the Great RTG. Make sure you guys go follow me on TikTok at Ryan the Great RTG. Make sure you guys go listen to the latest edition of the CR7 podcast. And make sure you guys go follow me on Twitch at Ryan the Great Podcast. And without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, let's get right into the video. Let me move this microphone a bit closer to me. All right. So let's get into it. First thing, starting off with the New York Knicks. All right. First thing, why did they fire Tom Thibodeau? Well, I mean, I guess you could say it's simple because of the fact that you blew that game 1 lead in the Eastern Conference Finals. And part of that is because of the issues I'm going to bring up right now. He didn't go to his bench. You saw that over the course of the season, his players were playing a crazy amount of minutes. His starting five, I believe, had 200 something more minutes than any other starting five in the NBA. That is, I think it had top 5 most minutes in NBA history. That starting five, and the starting five statistically, if you go into the deeper statistics, didn't really work so well together. So yeah, that's part of the problem there, I guess you should say. And there were some players that definitely were playing well. I believe it was Landry Shamet and a few other players. When you put them on the floor with a certain rotation, they actually played pretty well together. I believe there was a really good net rating and a really good offensive rating, over 100 something. When there was a certain combination of guys out there from the bench and the starters. I believe it was Anunoby, Ellis, and Shamek. Their offensive rating was really high, and their net rating was really high as well when those three were on the floor together. And then Thibodeau, just for some reason, didn't continue to go into his bench. And when he did go into his bench, which is I believe was in Game 3 of the Eastern Conference Finals, it was a bit too late. They were already down 2-0, and then that was the game they came back from 20 points, and then he just decided Game 4, Game 5, Game 6, not really going to his bench. And yeah, I mean the guys were tired. You definitely could say. I mean, they were definitely overworked. So it is what it is there. But players were complaining as I got on my screen here. Mikal Bridges, obviously, he said he was talking to Thibodeau about getting minutes reduced and stuff like that. I'm sure there were other guys within the organization or in the starting five that were not happy about the fact that they weren't getting rested, and there probably were guys on the bench that weren't happy that they weren't getting any playing time. There were a lot of really good players for the New York Knicks, like Shamek, like Ellis, who I've brought up repeatedly, that can come into the game and give you some good minutes, give you some good defense, and let the starters score. That's really all. Role players matter in the playoffs, and that's what I've always repeatedly said. Role players matter in the playoffs, and you have to play them. Look, I mean, the last few NBA Finals teams have had really good role players. The Denver Nuggets had a really good rotation on the bench. They had Braun, they had Brown, they had Jeff Green. The Boston Celtics, they had Pritchard, they had Luke Cornett. They had a bunch of other guys that could come off the bench and give you a few minutes. And then obviously the what do you want to call it? The Indiana Pacers, who the Knicks just lost to, had really good bench depth. They have Mathurin, they have Nemhard, they have Neesmith, and then the Oklahoma City Thunder. I mean, they got a bunch of guys as well. Pretty much, they have a 10-man rotation that they could play and win. So yeah, the role players matter. The Knicks have a pretty decent bench based off the stats that they had when they came into the game. Not really scoring stats or really stats that you would show up on the immediate box score, but if you go a bit deeper into it, you find that those rotations work a bit well together. So that's the reason that they fired Tom Thibodeau. Now we're going to get into my opinion. Do I think they should have fired him? No, because while all this matters, in my opinion, obviously, as I said, role players matter and all that good stuff. You want to play your bench because it helps. But you can't argue with the results that have been happening since Tom Thibodeau has been the coach of the New York Knicks. They've had an incredible they've not an incredible win percentage, but they've been a lot better. Now, that could be definitely disputed because when in past coaches, the Knicks didn't have the roster that Tom Thibodeau has had. But still, the organization was an unmitigated disaster before Tom Thibodeau, which obviously created a bit of culture into the New York Knicks franchise. And there was progress every single season. 2021, you lost to the Atlanta Hawks in the first round, and every single year you've pretty much gotten better to the point where you were 2 games away from an NBA championship. Now, do you want to blame Tom Thibodeau for that? Sure, but you also could blame the players on the floor. Look at Karl Anthony Towns, who was not that great defensively. Now, could have been because Tom Thibodeau played him a bit more. Sure, but the guy's making how much money? You got to try and get back on defense. I mean, it's obvious that the players and guys within the organization weren't too happy about his defensive effort because it wasn't just, the media who was, or I'm sorry, let me rephrase that. They were, the players were upset with Karl Anthony Towns for not getting back on defense. They weren't upset with Tom Thibodeau or for what the reports say. It wasn't because they said that Tom Thibodeau was playing too much. They just said that Karl Anthony Towns, from what the reports say, wasn't getting back on defense. He wasn't playing. He wasn't trying defensively. That's his fault right there. Guys like OG Anunoby, Mitchell Robinson can't make their free throws. You can't tell me that um, playing guys too much causes you to miss your free throws like that. Come on, like this is the NBA. Make your free throws. I mean, like, come on, that's ridiculous. If you want to blame time on that, and then they beat the Boston Celtics. What the hell is the problem here? They literally beat. Now, listen, if you beat the Celtics in the Eastern Conference Finals, yeah, it would have made a much more of a difference. But the Knicks, I guess you could say, were constructed to beat the Boston Celtics. Like, they made all these moves. Oh, the Suns are hiring Jordan Ott as their head coach. I don't know. The Cavs assistant. All right, whatever. Anyway, the Knicks, they're constructed to beat the Celtics, right? And they did that. So why all of a sudden does Thibodeau get fired? Why does the goalpost get moved because you lost to the Indiana Pacers? It doesn't make much sense to me. Now, if you would have lost to the Pacers in the Eastern Conference Finals, yeah, I would say, dude, like, yeah, I mean, whatever, because that's when your guys are a little bit more rested. Obviously, they have a bit more of their legs under them, and I think it would make a bit more sense. But now that it's the Eastern Conference Finals, you're 2 games away from NBA championship. You've progressed every single season. Why fire him now? You can't argue with the results. You could say, "Oh yeah, the bench was overworked, blah 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 blah," but or I'm sorry, the starting five was overworked. But you can't argue what those results have brought. Progress every single year. Beat the Boston Celtics, only a few games away from an NBA championship. You can't argue with the results have brought. You can't argue with the results have brought to the New York Knicks. You literally can't argue with it. It's inarguable. They've gotten to the Eastern Conference Finals. You wanted to get you overachieved, in my opinion. You weren't supposed to beat the Boston Celtics in the Eastern Conference semifinals. You weren't supposed to do that, but you did it anyway. And Thibodeau still gets fired. I know some people want to bring up the regular season record. They didn't beat the Cavs or Cleveland, the Cavs or the Celtics, or maybe they did once. I don't remember. It was just a bad record. So if you would have reversed that, say the Knicks would have won the season record, this would have swept the Celtics or sweep the Cavs, but then you lost to the Celtics in the Eastern Conference Eastern Conference semifinals. Does that mean that Thibodeau would have gotten fired? Probably, yes. So don't bring that up when he won when it mattered the most. And you were going to say, and you wouldn't accept the argument, well, he won in the regular season. Don't do that because the regular season doesn't matter. It's always about the playoffs. All right, don't do that. You wouldn't accept that argument if it was reversed. You can't make that argument. All right. Anyway, now that we know we've gotten all that out of the way, obviously can't go back in time and change this. So what's next? What is next for the New York Knicks? Well, my first question: why would you trade Karl Anthony Towns? I understand he wasn't that great defensively, but didn't he bring you back in a couple of games in these playoffs? Didn't you just trade picks, Julius Randle and Dante DiVincenzo for him? It doesn't make sense to trade him. He's probably the best shooting big man of all time. I mean, he can give you 20 and 10. And it's only his first year. Why all of a sudden? Because, there was a problem. There's problems with both guys. Like, you can definitely make the argument that Dibbs played him a bit more, but you could also make the argument that Towns just wasn't trying enough. You can make those arguments. So if there's a problem that's not, you could say not 100% of his fault, and I do acknowledge that, then why would you trade him? It doesn't make much sense to me, honestly. So I would keep Towns around for another year. It doesn't make unless you can trade him for Giannis, which I mean I would do that. Like unless you can get Giannis Antetokounmpo, who I'll talk about in a minute, then yeah, I'd do it. But if you're just going to trade it, I wouldn't trade him for Kevin Durant, honestly, because the Suns are going to. If the Suns realize they can get a lot of value out of the Knicks, then they're going to ask for a lot more. So I wouldn't. I wouldn't trade him for Kevin Durant. Kevin Durant's older. This is a team for the future. But we'll get into them in a second. So I wouldn't trade Towns unless it was for somebody like Giannis. Anyway, next coaching. The coaching search is on for the New York Knicks. Mike Malone is probably the best option. He's a champion. He's experienced. That's probably what the New York Knicks want within their franchise. So I could definitely see that happening. I think it would be the best option. Jay Wright is not happening. For all the people that have fantasized about that, Jay Wright had so many opportunities to take head coaching jobs when he was at Villanova, when he was at the peak of his powers, and he didn't do it. Why all of a sudden would he do it when he's retired and he's kind of set with his lifestyle as it is now? Like, you can make the argument the Knicks could pay him a lot of money, but I wouldn't. I don't know if I could see the New York Knicks paying a first-time NBA head coach who hasn't coached in a few years, a boatload of money just because it'll sell a couple of tickets. Maybe they could. Maybe I could see that. Honestly, it's James Dolan, so. Well, James Dolan has taken a step back a little bit, but still, it's the Knicks, so maybe I could possibly see that happening. But regardless, I don't see that happening. I don't see Jay Wright coming out of retirement to coach the Knicks. It's just for him. It logically doesn't make much sense, but if he wants to do it, then maybe. And then maybe Rick Brunson. I don't know. Rick Brunson could possibly be an option for the New York Knicks. It seems like they like him there. Obviously, the father of Jalen Brunson, but once again, I just not much experience. The Knicks need head coaching experience, need championship experience, which is what Mike Malone would bring. So I think it would possibly be a good option there. And then I don't know. I mean, you could try and pry away another head coach from a different team. I know Ime Udoka has been brought up, but I don't think that would happen. There have been other head coaches brought up. I mean, you're not going to get somebody like Ty Lue from the Clippers. So I just think getting Mike Malone would probably be your best option. It's not a bad option at all. It's not like you're settling, but still, I just think it would probably be your best option, and try not to waste your time on anybody else. But, we'll see. And then free agency. I mean, listen, the Knicks probably are going to have to upgrade their bench a bit because of the fact that you're going to have a coach that is probably going to want to play his role players. I mean, you saw Mike Malone do that in his championship run with the Denver Nuggets a couple of years ago. So you could definitely upgrade your bench. I think bringing back some of your role players now who are pretty decent. You want to try and get some 3-and-D players because because it looked like when Thibodeau was playing the role players that were good defensively and could shoot the three ball. It looked like it was working. That's how they came back in Game 3 of the Eastern Conference Finals. So definitely you can try and sign some of those guys. I don't know who's really out there. I've done much research on that, but. And then for the superstars, obviously there are rumors about Towns. I don't personally think they should trade him, but as I mentioned a couple of minutes ago, if you can trade Towns for Giannis, I would 100% do it because Giannis Antetokounmpo still, I guess you could say, in the prime of his career. He's not going anywhere for the next couple of seasons. Like, it's not like he's getting ready for retirement. He's on the back end of his career. He's definitely in the middle of his career. So if you could trade for Giannis Antetokounmpo, then I would do it, but I wouldn't give up too much because I think what we're seeing now in the NBA is that you can't trade your role. If you trade your role players and you trade all your draft picks away, your team is going to be pretty much handicapped because you can't just assemble a superstar team, which is what the new CBA has pretty much prohibited. So you can't trade away everything for a superstar because it's just not going to work. Your team's going to be bad. And your team's not going to be terrible, but you're not going to win championship off it. The teams with role players and depth and have been winning championships. And I think teams are starting to realize that a bit more, which is why I think Kevin Durant's asking price is going down because the Suns have realized, okay, we're team, the new NBA has realized that super teams are gone. Now the Suns obviously didn't notice that originally, but I think I've noticed it for the past couple of years, and teams I guess are finally starting to catch on that super teams aren't the way anymore. You got to have at least one or two superstars. I mean, the Thunder, they literally have only one superstar and a bunch of depth around them, and they've been able to win. I mean, the Nuggets, they had a star and a superstar, and they won the championship with a bunch of depth. The Celtics, I guess you could say they had two superstars, depending on how you see Jalen Brown and Jason Tatum. But just for the sake of this, we'll say that you have two superstars, and they had a bunch of depth around them, and they won the championship. So if you're the Knicks, I think if you do go after Kevin Durant, don't give up too much. I think in that case, you probably would have to trade Towns, but I don't know how. I don't know if maybe the Suns would want Towns. I don't really know, because obviously they're trying to get some money off the books because they're very handicapped at the current moment in time. So I don't know, but I would definitely trade Towns for Giannis. If Giannis wants to be traded, we don't even know if he wants to be traded. It's just a rumor. So yeah, I would say sign 3 and D guys, and if you and I mean get Mike Malone. And if you can trade Towns for Giannis, not straight out, but you get my point. If you can do it, then I would 100% do it. I would definitely do that. And yeah, that's kind of how I see the New York Knicks. Once again, I mean, I don't think it was like the worst thing in the world that they fired Thibodeau. There obviously were reasons to, but I don't think you can argue with the results that the Knicks have gotten better every single season. And now they fired him. It's hypocritical. It doesn't make sense. I mean, I get why, but you've made progress every single year. Now, if he wants it now next year, when the East gets well, I guess the Celtics aren't really depending on how you see the Celtics and what they do. They might not be. They could or could not be there. The Cavs will probably still be there. I mean, you have Philadelphia who could possibly make a comeback. Obviously, I'm biased towards that. I mean, the Pistons are still going to be there. They were pretty good. Um, there are definitely some teams. I don't know. I think the Knicks, they should have kept on to him for one more year. And if they didn't fire him when the East is probably going to be weaker than it was this year. Indiana's still going to be there, obviously. I don't know. It doesn't make it makes it, listen. It somewhat makes sense, but it also doesn't at the same time. I just wouldn't have fired him. I wouldn't have done it. I don't know. But yeah, we have this video coming out. We obviously have my NBA Finals preview on Monday. I believe it was on Monday. I uploaded that. Make sure you guys go check that one out. And then we're gonna have a Kevin Durant video, top 5 destinations for him. That'll probably come out that'll definitely come out sooner rather than later. Probably next Monday it'll come out. We're in the middle of the NBA Finals. I don't want it to come out during the weekend. So yeah, we'll probably post that next Monday, and obviously this video out Thursday. Today, Thursday, whatever. So yeah, that's kind of the update there. And that'll do for this video, guys. Make sure to subscribe with the post notifications on. Go subscribe to my brother in the Great Vlogs. Make sure to go subscribe to my second channel at Run the Combat Great. Make sure you guys go follow me at X Run the Great RTG. Make sure you guys go follow me on TikTok at Run the Great RTG. Make sure you guys go listen to the latest edition of the CR7 podcast, and make sure you guys go follow me on Twitter at Run the Great Podcast. And as always, Ryan the Great out. Peace.